The Billy Goat and the King. Once there lived a certain king who understood the language of all birds and beasts and insects. This knowledge had, of course, been given to him by a fairy godmother, and it was a rather troublesome present, for he knew that if he were ever to reveal anything he had thus learned from them, he would turn to stone. How he managed to avoid doing so for so long before the story I can't say, but he had safely grown up to manhood and married a wife, and was happy as monarchs generally are. The king, I must tell you, was a Hindu. When a Hindu eats his food, he has a nice little place on the ground freshly plastered with mud that he sits in the middle of with very few clothes on, which is quite a different way than ours. Well, one day the king was eating his dinner in just such a nice, clean, mud-plastered spot, and his wife was sitting opposite to wait upon him and keep him company. As he ate, he dropped some grains of rice upon the ground, and a little ant who was running about seeking a living seized upon one of the grains and bore it towards the hole. Just outside the king's circle, his ant met another ant, and the king heard the second one say,
"Oh, dear friend, do give me that grain of rice, and get another one for yourself. You see, my boots are so dirty that if I go upon the king's eating place, I should defile it, and I can't do that. It would be so very rude."
But the owner of the grain of rice only replied,
"If you want rice, go and get it. No one will notice your dirty boots, and don't you suppose that I'm going to carry the rice for all our kindred?"
Then the king laughed. The queen looked at herself up and down, as she could not see anything in her appearance that would make the king laugh. So she said,
"What are you laughing at?"
"Did I laugh?" replied the king.
"Of course you did," retorted the queen. "And if you think I am ridiculous, I wish you would say so instead of behaving in that stupid way. What are you laughing at?"
"I'm not laughing at anything," answered the king.
"Very well, but you did laugh, and I want to know why."
"Well, I'm afraid I can't tell you," said the king.
"You must tell me," replied the queen impatiently. "If you laugh when there's nothing to laugh at, you must be ill or mad. What is the matter?"
The king still refused to say, and still the queen declared that she must and would know. For days the quarrel went on, and the king gave her husband no rest until at last the poor man was almost out of his wits, and thought that, as life had become for him hardly worth living while this went on, he might as well tell her the secret and take the consequences. "But if I am to become a stone, I am not going to lie if I can help it on some dusty highway and be kicked there by a man, beast, or flung at dogs, and being used as a plaything for naughty children, and becoming generally restless and miserable. I will be a stone at the bottom of a cool river, and roll gently there until I find some secure resting place where I can stay forever." So he told his wife if she would ride with him to the middle of the river, he would tell her what he laughed at. She thought he was joking, but laughingly agreed. Their horses were ordered, and they set out. On the way they came to a fine well beneath the shade of some lofty, wide-spreading trees, and the king proposed that they should get off and rest a little while, drink some of the cool water, and then pass on. To this his wife consented, so they dismounted and sat down in the shade by the well-side to rest. It happened that an old goat and his wife were browsing in the neighborhood, and as the king and queen sat there, the nanny goat came to the well's brink, and peering over saw some lovely green leaves that sprang in tender shoots from the sides of the well.
"Oh!"
cried she to her husband.
"Come quickly and look. There are some leaves which will make my mouth water. Come get them for me."
Then the billy goat sauntered up and looked over, and after that he eyed his wife a little crossly.
"You expect me to get you those leaves, do you? I suppose you don't consider how in the world I am to reach them. Don't you think to think at all? If you did, you would know that if I tried to reach those leaves, I should fall into the well and be drowned."
"Oh!" cried the nanny goat.
"Why should you fall in? Do try and get them."
"I'm not going to be so silly," replied the billy goat. But the nanny goat still wept and entreated. "Look here," said the husband.
There are plenty of fools in the world, but I'm not one of them. The silly king here, because he can't cure his wife from asking questions, is going to throw his life away. But I know how to cure you of your follies, and I'm going to.
And with that, he butted the nanny goat so severely in that the 2 minutes she was submissively feeding somewhere else, and had made up her mind that the leaves in the well were not worth having. Then the king, who understood every word, laughed once more. The queen looked at him suspiciously, but the king got up and walked across to where she sat. "Are you still determined to find out what I was laughing at the other day?" he asked.
Quite,
She said angrily. "Because," said the king, tapping his leg with his riding whip, "I have made up my mind not to tell you, and moreover I have made up my mind to stop you mentioning the subject any more."
What do you mean?
asked the queen nervously.
Well,
replied the king,
notice that if a goat is displeased with his wife, he just butts her and seems to settle the question. Do you mean that you would beat me?
cried the queen.
I should be extremely sorry to have to do so, replied the king, but I've got to persuade you to go home quietly, and to ask no more silly questions when I say I cannot answer them. Of course, if you will persist, why...
And the queen went home, and so did the king, and it was said that they were both happier and wiser than before.